Welcome to week 3 vlog. There were 2 questions that you asked about this week, and we'll talk about those. Thanks for those of you who submitted questions, and I'm always welcome to talk about whatever you're curious about. Just let me know on the Learn Forum. The first question is about the solid waste crisis and what are some ways we might actually get out of it. And the second one is about working in the waste field and what kind of jobs are available. I'm going to start with the second one because it's easier. Before I do that, I just want to give a big shout out and thank you to Roshwan, who's recently joined our teaching team and has been helping with captioning all the videos. So thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate how it makes the course more accessible to everyone. So for jobs in the waste field, there's a few buckets that you could work in. One is consulting, one is working for a municipality, one would be working for a commercial waste services provider, so someone who operates a landfill or operates collection routes and things like that. And then one would just be working for a large company like IC&I sector kind of actor who has their own waste to deal with and does that internally. So for a municipality or a waste contractor, you're actually, running landfills or anaerobic digestion facilities and things like that. So there's a lot of day-to-day operations, planning, compliance, dealing with stuff that comes up, keeping things running. So very operational. There's definitely work in there. And there also might be at the same organizations, someone who's in charge of like sustainability or waste planning and stuff like that, especially at a municipality. So they typically will kind of work closely with the operations people, but it's a different kind of job. So they might have like a zero waste coordinator and then like a supervisor of the landfill and things like that. So those are kind of some roles in the actual municipality. If you're in just working for anyone in the IC&I sector, so say a big metallurgical company or a mall or someone like that, they're going to have a department that's in charge of the waste as well. They may also have a sustainability coordinator who's working on waste programs, maybe greenhouse gas programs as well. They often will lump those together and they'll do sustainability programs and compliance reporting and stuff like that. So that's a job you could have. And then in consulting, we do kind of 2 pieces. Well, there's kind of this pipeline of design from the very, very high level all the way down to construction management. And there's a counterpart on the other side, a consultant at the company or the municipalities who's providing that service. So starting at the very, very top, kind of visioning and making a plan and determining feasibility. There's someone who's hiring a consultant to do that and managing the tenders and keeping them on track and making sure they're getting what they want. And then there's the consultant who's doing kind of the dirty work on it. So it'll start really high level planning. What do we want to do? How are we going to do it? What are our options? When is it going to happen? Stuff like that. And then it will move more detailed to like a conceptual design. Okay, here's kind of what we want to do. We're going to maybe build these types of facilities. And then it will move into more detailed design, choosing the sites, picking the layout, and then even more detailed and picking how thick the walls are and stuff like that. And then eventually you'll have someone doing construction management and actually having the thing exist out in the world. So at each of those stages, there's kind of a team of consultants supporting the client, whether it's municipal or a waste company through all those steps. So you could be working on either side of those. And kind of if you're in the consultant role, which is what I do, you get to see a lot of things for a little bit of time because you're bumping all around the time, helping on different pieces of different things. If you're sitting in a waste company or a municipality or an industry and you're like their waste person, you get to work on issues, bigger issues for a longer time and have more change and really see things happen. So there's kind of 2 different views. And yeah, depending on what you like, you might like one more than the other one. A lot of people like starting out in consulting because you get to see a lot and then they'll settle into a job somewhere else where they can dig in and really make some change happen and see something long-term change, but all career paths are different. So that's kind of a really high level. It's really everything out there. Everything we touch on in the course you might look at. from waste prevention all the way through organic treatment and recycling and landfills and incineration. And you'll look at it at different levels. So you might look at it very, very, very detailed, where you don't really even have to know about the waste system. You just have to know about like the specific tank you're designing or something like that, or a very high level where you actually don't know anything about the specific tank, but you know how all these high level pieces plug in together, and you're dealing with policy and high level energy and mass flows and things like that. So that's kind of the stuff that's out there. Pretty general, but there's just so much. There's just so many things. Everything connects to waste, so there's a lot out there. If you have more questions, I can try and answer them more detailed if you let me know what they are. So that's jobs. The next question someone was asking about, I really think we're in this waste crisis. It's really bad. What do we do? So it's a really big question to answer, because kind of the way I started out the course was saying waste is interesting because it's tied in with everything else, and you can't really solve waste without changing the way kind of our society and economy runs. So I'll try and stay in my lane as like the waste professor here. I definitely don't have the answer to it, but I'll just highlight a few things that we've actually looked at already that I think would be elements of long-term solutions. So two of the first things we looked at in the course were the waste hierarchy and the triple bottom line. And I think any good solution is going to have elements of those. So waste hierarchy really focusing on prevention very first, and then looking at diversion next, and then all those higher uses of waste going all the way down. So if you start by focusing on recycling, you've missed the point. If you start by focusing on organic waste diversion, we've missed the point. So I think we need to move up to where is our waste originating? And that kind of comes back to what kind of economy do we have in Canada? We have an economy where we make a lot of money and we buy a lot of stuff and we throw a lot of stuff out, and that's something we're going to need to break out of. And I think COVID's focusing our economy to rethink how sustainable is it with everything shut down. We're getting hit pretty hard. We can move around some policies and numbers and things and make it work, but we need to do that. And I think once we can do that, figure out a way that people can have enough money to live and we extract less resources and throw less out, that will be a step in the right direction. So that kind of goes along with the waste hierarchy. And then the triple bottom line analysis, I think any good solution is going to work for people, planet, and profit. Any solution that's leaving people behind or putting the profit first or things like that typically won't work. It'll work for some people, but there's a lot of people to make it work for, and that's not just people in Canada for us, it's people in other countries. So we can't just outsource all our problems to other places. So I think a successful solution will take all of those factors in as well. And like I said, with the hierarchy, if we start at the top, what are the foundational ways about the way our society operates? If you start thinking there, you're going to touch on the triple bottom line automatically, and then that's going to trickle down to the amount of waste we produce and how much resources we burn through. And just to highlight, so the second part of the question the person asked was, what are some things that other people are doing that have worked? So I just want to take a quick look at that. So in our chapter 1, I had you look at the circularity gap report. So I want to bring your attention back there. So if you remember, we looked at this figure where we've got this funny looking map with all these dots on it. So the blue dots are highly developed countries. The red dots are developing countries, and then the brown dots are kind of middle income countries, somewhere in the middle. And then the size of the dot is how much resources is it taking up. And they're kind of grouped radiating out from the center on a blend of those two variables. So I took a look to see what kind of trends I might be able to comment on. There's certain countries in Europe that we think about that are like really good at waste, where a lot of our technology comes from. So like Germany, for example, developed a lot of anaerobic digestion technology and a lot of the sorting machines they used in materials recovery facilities and stuff like that. But Germany's way out here, they're still using a lot of resources. So in here, closer to the center, are all like you don't see a lot of the rich countries that are known for like being progressive on waste, whatever that means. So there's a lot of kind of still developing countries. Of the ones with the higher incomes: Uruguay, Romania, Bulgaria, Argentina. So I looked into a few of these and just to see if, are these countries doing amazing environmental programs? And they're not really doing anything too special. From what I can tell, more so it's that they just haven't got to the level of massive consumption that we have out here on the corners, but they've still been able to develop socially while not doing that. So I think it's actually going to be a lot easier for these countries to improve their kind of equity and income performance than it is for us out here to actually reduce our waste, because our whole economy is built on burning through resources. So that's kind of the number one thing. You can't reduce waste and burn through tons and tons and tons of resources. So it's kind of a contradiction in the economy that we'll have to work out if we are going to have an economy that cycles energy and materials in a way that is sustainable and also is equitable across different populations. So that's kind of what I took away from this analysis. Is it's really hard to spend a lot of money and not make a lot of waste. And I think those countries that are still working up in their income are much better positioned not to go down the road we've gone down. I think it's going to be really hard for us to give up all of our material stuff, which we don't even question burning through at rates of multiple Earths per person. But that being said, there are success stories from us countries out here on the hinterlands of performance. So I'll take your attention. There's an organization called Zero Waste Europe, and they've got this great library on different stories that different communities across Europe have kind of gone through in their journey trying to get to lower waste. So they're pretty short and they're all kind of different communities and kind of interesting. So just for some examples, there's one about Vernica in Slovenia, who they started doing zero waste in like the 90s before anyone else really wanted to, and they really did it for economic reasons. Like it was just getting really expensive, so they instituted like some communal collection programs and block collection programs. And they were collecting, it said 30 tons of waste without even having a collection system. So they kind of got on the problem really early and got people really kind of hands-on with their own waste. So there's a really community aspect to it. And then they also had an EPR system which took care of some of their harder to treat waste, like appliances and e-waste and stuff like that. And it was just the remainder that they had to manage. So that's one example. And another example is Bruges, Belgium, and this is an example of food waste reduction. And they have like a really community-based program in engaging people on the issue and getting their ideas, and then building organizations up that would tackle food waste. And they did it in a very socially minded way. So they set up a few organizations that dealt with food waste in a way that also addressed some social problems. So there's like a grocery store that repurposed food waste for lower income people. There's a soup kitchen that made soup out of food that would have been wasted. And then there's also a restaurant that employed people who were having trouble finding work elsewhere and used some of that food waste. So just different ways to solve a few problems at once and try and generate that triple bottom line benefit. But there's lots more examples in this library, and there might be a few things to kind of learn from in here. But at the end of the day, it is a really big problem. It can't just be solved by looking at waste engineering and building, really, really good waste facilities, even though that's what we're going to look at for the rest of the term. But I definitely invite your comments and your ideas about things we could do or things that you've read about that worked, and I can bring them to the class, and we can if we can figure out the waste thing by the end of the course, that would be great. So that's it for now. And I love having these conversations. So Anything you'd like me to comment on or comments you want me to bring up, just let me know. I'm happy to put them in another vlog next week. And till then, we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.